lot of stuff. You know, I look at cars and, you know, because of what we do, we get to really drive and experience just about everything that's out there on the market. And we heard rumblings of the Demon, you know, a few years ago, and we kind of got excited, especially because we had a lot of miles behind the wheel of the Charger and the Challenger Hellcat. And personally, they're two of my favorite automobiles. So when we heard the Demon was going to come out with, you know, all this extra power and this technology, and it was going to be kind of like a street-driven drag car, we were simply blown away. And even more than that, we were like, I wonder if we could kind of get one. We got one. Every now and then a car comes out that becomes an icon before it even hits the street of the track. Years ago, Chrysler Skunk Works created a car called the Hemi Dart that went out to basically dominate drag racing. But that was over 50 years ago. Now, the Skunk Works at Chrysler are basically the guys from SRT Engineering, and they created this. This is the 2018 Dodge Demon, and I'm one of the very fortunate 3,300 people that actually get to own one. It's one of the fastest cars on the planet Earth. It'll run the quarter mile in 9.65 at 140 miles an hour. It'll pull a wheelie, and there's basically nothing else really in its bracket that will keep up with it. Not only are we really excited about this, but I'm even more excited because we actually own this car. And it's not a press car, it's not anything but ours. So here's the thing, by doing so, we can give you unbiased reviews about what this car is like to live with all the time, because the fact of the matter is, I'm going to drive it all the time. You know, odds are we're gonna put another set of wheels and tires on this thing, like the Street and Tire package from Opar, but you're gonna see this car get mile upon mile upon mile put on it. It's gonna be used as a semi-daily driver, it's gonna be used to go on road trips, it's gonna be used to go to the drag strip and rip it up. Our goal, honestly, is to make this one of the most used Demons in the world, because let's face it, if you buy a car like this and you're not using it for its intended purpose, you just spent a whole bunch of money for nothing. You only live once. We're not doing that. The inevitable question is going to come up, well, if you're going to use the Demon as a road car and not just a drag car, why didn't you just go out and buy a wide-body Hellcat, or a regular Hellcat for that matter? And the fact is this, the Demon is an unbelievable GT car if you spec it out correctly. And that's exactly what we did, right? So if we run through our spec list, we decked it out like we would have decked out any car that we bought, right? So I've got leather seats with heat and ventilation. I've got a heated steering wheel. I've got the big 18-speaker stereo. I've got wonderful climate control. It's comfortable. I actually got a passenger seat because that's what you do in a car. I also got a rear seat because that's another thing that you do in a car. Now, that's not going to stop us from perhaps putting a cage in this car. You can still do that with a back seat. For those of you that didn't get an extra seat or seats, I think you're missing out. The engineers at SRT are really, really kind of sticklers that if you're going to purchase a car like this, one of the first things that you have to do is, one, understand what you actually have, meaning you have to respect the power and you have to respect, the build of this car and what it's capable of. But two, you have to break it in properly. And this is where I think so many people miss the mark when they're buying a car like this. And there are different schools of thought, right? There are some people that'll get in a car and just hammer it from day one, and they're like, well, that's the best thing that you could do to a car. The thing is, you want to take the time and break these cars in properly. Now, the steps that we're going to follow are straight from the engineers. And they tell you this so that not only the engine, but the drivetrain components and everything break in properly. And there are different segments in this, which we're going to go over.
Please listen carefully. While you might not think modern cars need running in, they do to get the best from them. The piston rings need seating. The gears have to mesh perfectly, and even the CV joints in the driveline work better for longer if they're broken in properly. Oh, and by the way, this advice applies to all SRT vehicles, not just the 840 horsepower Demon. Before I run through the SRT engineer's recommendations, here's a few words of wisdom from the guy who sold us the Demon.
A lot of times people think that they know how to take care of a car or what they can do with a car, and they get anxious and they go out and they hot rod it. I mean, I know a couple of guys have already taken to the drag strip in 100 miles. That's the worst thing you can do to this car. You know, you need to follow the procedure, get 500 miles on it. And by the way, this car has 2 owner's manuals, right? Read both
I
of
noticed
them.
that.
and truly follow it. If you really want to get the most enjoyment out of the car and you want to do it without hurting the car, that's what you've got to do. Have as much fun as you want, but wait until 500 miles.
Right. Okay. Break-in procedures. What are they? Well, let's talk about the first one. 0 to 100 miles. For that, it's not exciting. Step 1. Do not allow the engine to operate at idle for an extended period of time. Step 2. Do not depress the pedal more than halfway and avoid rapid acceleration. Step 3. Avoid aggressive braking. And here's the thing, with any new car, you really don't want to just go in and jam on the pads. You want to seat the pads to the rotors, so that's kind of standard amongst all vehicles. Step 4. Do not exceed 3,500 RPMs. And the final one of the 0 to 100 mile break-in. Don't go over 55 miles an hour. And obey all speed limits. I'm not going to lie to you, it actually says obey all speed limits. I'm trying, and I think I'm doing okay. Like I said, 54 miles an hour, cruise control set, not a lot happening. Step 2 of the break-in process, 100 miles to 300 miles. Depress the accelerator pedal slowly, not more than halfway, and avoid rapid acceleration through the first 3 gears. Number 2, avoid aggressive braking. You're still seating the pads into the rotors, so if you can avoid just slamming on the brakes, do that, and you'll get some more life out of these babies. Step 3, do not exceed 5,000 RPMs. Now, that's actually pretty good, because the fact of the matter is, you bring this thing up to $5,000, you are actually starting to have a little fun with the car. You're experimenting to see what the car can do. And right now we're running the Black Key, which limits the car to 500 horsepower. And I mean, listen, with 500 horsepower, this thing is still going to get up and run like hell. So, but again, follow the manual. Don't go past $5,000 until it tells you to. And the final phase of the 100 to 300 mile break-in, do not exceed 70 miles per hour. So think about it like this. Between 100 and 300 miles, you can actually start to explore what the Demon's capable of, right? You can take it up to 5,000 RPM, and while at 70, you can get on the highway, you can get on the interstate. You don't have to worry about people honking at you and passing you and yelling at you, when on the inside, you know you're doing the right thing. So we're almost getting to the fun part. In the next segment of the Dodge Demon Break-In, 300 miles to 500 miles, we actually get to exercise the Demon and really start to have a little fun. Number 1, and this is good, exercise the full RPM range of the Dodge Demon while shifting manually via the paddles or the T-handle shifter. This is cool because now you can kind of get into it, you can run through the gears, play with the car, start enjoying it, but again, be safe, don't break the speed limit. Next, do not perform sustained operation at wide open throttle. So here's the thing, you can take the car, you can run it through the gears, but don't all of a sudden go out and start doing massive wide open throttle moves, like just putting your foot on the accelerator for however long. And the final portion of the 300 to 500 mile break-in, just maintain speeds below 85 miles an hour. The final step of the break-in process, 500 miles to 1,500 miles. The engineers basically don't want you to go out and go to any sanctioned drag race events or kind of start really ripping the car until you get to that 1,500 mile mark. And the reason is this, again, through all the entire span of the break-in process from 0 miles to 1,500, you're still making everything work together. And I got news, as one of the lucky 3,300s that was actually able to obtain one of these cars, we are going to follow these break-in procedures to the letter.
So that's the theory behind properly breaking in a Demon. Now, all we have to do is get to the magic 1,500 miles so we can do this. We'll have more, much more, about that in episode 2 of the Demon Diaries. We're going down to the southernmost tip of Key West, and that is the southernmost point in the continental United States, and the odometer on the Demon is 1,000 miles.
That's insane.
That's insane.